If you want to improve your all-around game sense,
gather round.
My name is Braden, and welcome to Valve Guides. CSGO Empire is the #1 site for fun entertainment in the CS community. Make sure to follow them on Twitter for consistent giveaways and use our code guides for 50 cents for free to start betting. Howdy y'all, hope your 2018 has been going smoothly thus far. Before we start the discussion, if you would like your questions or comments to be featured in the Q&A portion at the end of the video, make sure to follow me on Twitter at BradenVG and keep up with the community section of the channel. I do apologize, I'm slightly under the weather. I meant to get this video out yesterday, but I was more under the weather yesterday. That being said, Gamesense is a necessity for any serious player in CSGO, and having raw aim is a wonderful skill to have, but if you're not aware of your surroundings and other mechanics in the game, you will fall short of glory. Here are our top 10 ways you can massively improve your game sense in CSGO. Starting off with number 10, learning how to watch your demos effectively. And this includes learning how to control the demo system, because that on its own is daunting to some people.
You're looking for any little advantage you can get to get a step up now, to bridge the gap between you and these top teams. And so that doesn't mean just doing what they do, because at the moment they're doing it better, but it means doing what they do and doing what they aren't willing to do and doing things they haven't thought to do yet and trying to gain ground on them actually.
Understanding how you play is just as important as understanding how somebody else plays, and watching your demos really gives you the best of both of these worlds. Studying specifically the points when you die in games and the points leading up to your death, you can study your moves and help prevent what caused you to die in the first place. These are situations that you can control a lot of the time. Not only this, but it does teach you how other players play as well, so you can just watch your opponents and see how they react to you and learn their tendencies. Which brings us to number 9, understanding your role. You're gonna hit a wall if you neglect to figure out what your role is in your team. Pros all have designated roles, and occasionally they do change. However, for the most part, learning what part of your team you work best in and sticking with it is a very useful tool to have in your belt. Encourage your friends who you play with to do the same. It's a little more difficult if you have more than just 4 friends and you kind of have like a revolving door of people you queue with, because then you all have different roles and tendencies. But assuming you do have exactly a squad of 5 people, actually set up roles, and as you progress, pay attention to when talents shift and make changes accordingly. Once you understand your role, you'll really be able to plan out your actions more effectively, which brings us to number 8. Planning out your actions. Once you've learned how to study your demos and you know your role in the game, you can start really planning out how you handle given situations within your role. If you're the endgame leader, how do you communicate with your players? If you're the opper, when do you get the op and what angles should you hold? If you're the entry fragger, how do you breach and what nades do you throw? These are all questions that you need to be asking yourself before you start the game. And you can learn what works best by studying your demos, and understanding your role makes planning a lot smoother. Helping you plan your actions, there's nothing quite like landing the right smoke, which brings us to number 7, understanding smokes. Landing the perfect smoke can determine the course of an entire round, and the lack of nades and smokes in lower ranks of CSGO is easily exploitable. So if you're watching this as a lower ranked player, this is one of the most important things you will ever learn. Hop into a private match and pull up some YouTube tutorials and start smoking. I can't stress this enough, or tell you anything else for that matter. If you're silver through gold nova, smokes will really change your perception of the game, and it will help you climb up the rank ladder so much faster. Not only knowing how to use smokes, but being able to predict and hear enemy smokes, which brings us to number 6, understanding sounds. Sounds are just as important as visuals in CSGO. Obviously, somebody that's blind would have a harder time playing CSGO if they can only hear. That's not the point. Combining the two is equally important. If you're playing CSGO deaf, you're at a massive disadvantage as well. So if you're playing somebody that doesn't have a good headset or doesn't pay attention to sounds in general, like people that listen to music while playing competitively, you have a massive advantage over them. And on the flip side, if you learn to hone your ability to study sounds and hear everything, then you have a massive advantage, even if the other person can hear sounds too. An obvious way this is helpful is literally straight up being able to determine the gun your enemy is using before even seeing them. Like if they take shots at you and you didn't see them, you know what gun they have right off the bat. Being able to hear footsteps from most distances and being able to determine where the footsteps are exactly, hearing nades thrown before they detonate, bomb diffusion sounds, literally any sound in the game can be useful. Number 5, always be focused. Like basically everything on this list, on the surface level, of course goes without saying. But honestly, I can find myself pulling up my phone during games in the downtime between rounds. Say we just had a victory and I'm just getting a little bored, I'll pull up my phone and check Twitter during a game. That's not good. I, for some reason, just decide to switch off my brain when we're not in the middle of a round. And honestly, that lack of focus and discipline has punished me more than I would care to admit, and I would advise highly against it. I mean, as long as there's nothing pressing or important that is happening around you in real life, like I'm looking around, nothing's happening, so I'm focusing on recording this video. That's what you should be doing for CSGO. In the downtime between rounds, you should be planning out what you're going to do next, thinking about what just happened, what the enemies did, and what they're likely to do as a result of what they just did. That was confusing. I can speak. Number 4, studying callouts. This is going to be the shortest number on the list because studying callouts is something you only have to do once for each map. And once you know all the callouts, assuming none of them change, bam, you have an instant permanent skill. It makes communication that much more efficient, and there's really nothing else to say about it. But once you know the callouts,
this is where the fun begins.
Memorizing every angle within each callout is obviously very important, but seemingly neglected more often than it should be. Knowing specific angles, nades, and positions for each individual callout is an unbelievable advantage to have, and especially in lower ranks. I'm going to emphasize again, if you're a lower ranked player watching this video and you really do study all of these things, you're going to climb the ladder unbelievably quickly. Researching how angles can be held in different ways, and each individual angle does have different ways you can hold them specific to that place. Just looking up tutorials, straight up looking up tutorials on each individual angle. It'll teach you how to prioritize who you protect. Say you're on T and you have to push somewhere and you have to push around an angle, you know where every point is and you can protect the bomb holder, say, if that's your job. If you're the entry fragger, you got to protect the bomb holder, get as many frags as possible. And if you're on the defense, then you're basically the most important player on the team if you can do this. And you'll find endless ways to use this to your advantage. Once you have learned a map inside and out and studied your demos and determined your role, you should be able to effectively predict a lot of enemy actions, which brings us to number 2, prediction. Being able to hold an angle correctly and knowing the enemy's most probable next move is pretty much a game winner in matchmaking. Pay attention to what nades your opponents tend to throw and what positions they gravitate towards, and by the end of the match, you will be unstoppable. In other words, you will be Mace Windu.
I sense a plot.
For our last and final point before the Q&A, we have patience. Patience is the most important and universally applicable piece of advice on this list. Combining patience with true determination and effective research, you have yourself a potential star. Apply patience to literally everything that we have previously talked about in this video, and your chances of improving have just skyrocketed that much more dramatically. You should always be working on improving something. It's just the hardest part of all of this is learning how to be patient, determined, effective, and consistent without burning out. Because at the end of the day, CSGO is still a game, and you should not be devoting your entire life and everything you do and every day towards it. You can make it a big part of your life, but at the end of the day, the people around you matter more. It's important not to get burned out of the game if you do want it to be important to you. So just find that balance, and at that point, keep going, and you'll be on course to be the greatest player that you can be. Welcome all to the destruction of me as we bet our final scraps that we have left in my failed attempt to make profit betting, which was going really well until I took a break, and then I came back and I guess I lost my touch. But thank you guys so much for sticking around until this portion of the video. We're gonna go an all-in bet with what we have left, see what we can do, and I'm gonna answer questions that you guys asked me on my Twitter. And if you'd like to ask questions and make comments that you'd like me to read as well, make sure to follow me on Twitter at BradenVG. Starting off with at DanielJ61472846. It's a long Twitter username. He says, how much do you enjoy, sorry, I'm still under the weather. He says, how much do you enjoy making YouTube videos with the Valve Guides team? I absolutely love it. With that being said, this is our demise. We're gonna go on T because I feel like we always go CT. It's our last 10. Monkey to Monkey says, why are you still wearing that Christmas hat? Because I want to. In fact, I've had this profile picture for over a year now. And look at what we just did, y'all. You know what? We're gonna go 20 on CT. because that's the smart thing to do. And there we go. It's all ogre. I was kind of hoping that would happen because we need to start, I guess, a new run because this one just fell apart really quickly. And it's entirely my fault. S, his name is literally S on Twitter, asks, when is it too late to start playing Counter-Strike to become pro? I don't think it's too late up until the point where you probably start having like physical wrist issues and stuff, I guess when you're older. I mean, you can do it at any age as long as you want to. It's just a matter of, do you want to, I guess, because I'm assuming when you're 40 and your body is starting to you know, do that, you're probably not gonna want to be a CSGO pro, but that doesn't mean that you can't be. Last question is the AUG worth buying in CS, or should I buy other guns? I actually answered this tweet, so I've already replied to it, I guess. But basically, most people will say no, and that's probably a good thing. For me personally though, I haven't used it in a while, but I know last time I did use it, I just love the sight on the AUG. And personally, it really does just make me feel like I'm better aiming, but that's neither here nor there, and that varies from person to person. So, I mean, if you have a ridiculous amount of money and there's nothing you can really use it for, and you wanna use the AUG, I don't see why not. I mean, if you never use it and then you just pick it up, then that's not a good idea. I wouldn't say never buy the AUG, just not when it's mission critical, I guess. Well, this betting run is over, y'all. I was not made for this life, as you can see. We're gonna start a new run though, and I look forward to that with y'all. Thank you so much for staying until this part of the video. Make sure to follow CSGO Empire on Twitter for consistent giveaways, and if you want to have questions featured in these parts of the video for the Q&A, you can follow me on Twitter at BradenVG. I will see you guys in the next video.